Dreamtime history for sleep.
You know cats as cute pets, but in ancient Egypt, they were divine warriors, and their queen was Bastet. In ancient Egypt, a deity of grace and ferocity guarded the hearth and defended against darkness. She was Bastet, the cat goddess, whose watchful eyes mirrored the sun and whose gentle purr could turn into a protective roar. Discover the enigmatic power of Egypt's beloved feline protector, a goddess revered for millennia. Her story is one of myth, magic, and enduring adoration. But what was the true source of this feline protector's enigmatic power? To understand the goddess, we must travel back to the dawn of creation, to the very source of light itself. Her genesis is not a single story, but a tapestry woven from divine threads. Some legends claim she was born directly from the fire of the sun god Ra, a daughter molded from his celestial power, tasked with protecting him on his nightly journey through the perilous underworld. In this role, she was one of the deities known as the Eye of Ra, a title for the feminine counterpart to the sun god's power, an agent of both his vengeance and his protection. Other whispers from the papyri name her a child of Osiris, god of the afterlife, linking her to the sacred cycles of death and rebirth that governed all Egyptian life. But before she was the gentle guardian of the hearth, she was a terror in the desert. Her earliest form was not that of a graceful cat, but of a ferocious lioness, a warrior goddess of savage grace. In this guise, she was nearly indistinguishable from the fearsome Sekhmet, the Lady of Slaughter, her divine sister, or perhaps her other self. They were two faces of the same divine coin. One, the burning, destructive heat of the midday sun. The other, the gentle, life-giving warmth of its morning rays. Imagine this power, a goddess who could unleash plagues upon the enemies of Egypt, and then, in another breath, transform into a symbol of joy and fertility. This evolution from lioness to cat marks a profound shift in the Egyptian psyche, a taming of wild, raw power into a force for domestic harmony and protection. The first concrete evidence of her worship emerges from the mists of the Second Dynasty. Her name, etched onto stone vessels and seals, anchors her firmly in the rich, black earth of the Nile Delta. It was here, in Lower Egypt, that her cult first took root. She was a local protector, a guardian of the marshlands, whose power was as vital and life-sustaining as the river itself. This regional devotion found its heart in a city that would become famous with her name, Bastet. The house of Bastet, known to the Greeks as Bubastis, strategically positioned on the eastern arm of the Nile, Bubastis was a thriving hub of commerce and culture. Its fortunes rose and fell not on the whims of pharaohs alone, but on the perceived favor of its feline patron. To its people, the city's prosperity, the fertility of its fields, and its safety from foreign invaders were all gifts laid at the feet of their goddess. Her temple was not merely a building, it was the divine engine of the city. It's a place where the cosmic order was maintained and humanity could commune with one of its most accessible deities. Within the grand pantheon, she was a unique force, a defender of the king, a champion of women, a bringer of music and dance, and a fierce enemy of the serpent of chaos. Apep, her power was established, her home was consecrated, and her dual nature was understood. But how did this potent protector of the Delta captivate the hearts of an entire empire? What transformed her regional cult into a national phenomenon, celebrated with a passion that bordered on ecstatic frenzy? The answer lies not in stone temples, but in the rhythm of music, the scent of wine, and the roar of a festival that would become the most famous and decadent in all of Egypt. To see Bastet only as a gentle guardian, A purring companion at the hearth of Egypt is to see but half of a terrifying whole. For within the graceful shadow of the cat lurks the consuming fire of the lioness. Before there was Bastet, the protector, there was Sekhmet, the powerful one. Imagine a goddess born from the sun's most violent rage, a being of pure, unbridled fury, sent to earth by her father Ra to punish a rebellious humanity. She was not a symbol of war. She was war itself. Her breath was the desert wind, her roar the coming of plague. Sekhmet, the eye of Ra, was divine retribution made manifest. Disdained lioness who bathed in the blood of her enemies, her thirst for destruction unquenchable. She was the terror in the midday sun, the fever that broke cities, the savage force that could unmake creation itself as she rampaged across the land, threatening to annihilate all of humankind. The gods themselves grew fearful. They pleaded with Ra to call off his avenging daughter, but she was lost in a frenzy of bloodlust. Cunning was needed where power had failed. Ra commanded that thousands of jars of beer be dyed red with pomegranate juice and poured out across the fields of Dendera. Deceived into thinking the Crimson Lake was an ocean of human blood, Sekhmet descended and drank ferociously. The potent brew overwhelmed her. She fell into a deep, drunken slumber, her rage finally quenched. When she awoke, the blood-crazed lioness was gone. In her place was a calmer, gentler divinity. In her place was Bastet, but this was not an erasure. It was a transformation. The fury of Sekhmet was not destroyed. It was merely contained. Within the serene protector, the heart of the avenger still beat. This is the essential truth of Bastet's nature. She was the benevolent guardian of the home precisely because she possessed the unrestrained power to annihilate any who would threaten it. Her claws, though sheathed, were still the claws of a lioness. She could guard a sleeping child with the same ferocity she once used to slaughter armies. This duality was central to the Egyptian worldview. They did not see good and evil as opposing forces, but as a necessary balance. There is no life without death, no creation without destruction, no order or Ma'at without the constant threat of chaos. Bastet was the living embodiment of this cosmic equilibrium. She was the gentle warmth of the sun that nourishes the crops, but also the scorching heat that brings drought and famine. She was the mother cat, nurturing and loving, and the apex predator, swift and lethal. Her story is a testament to the power of transformation, a divine echo of the cycles that governed all life in Egypt. Just as the Nile's destructive flood would recede to leave behind life-giving silt, just as the blazing sun would set to allow for the cool renewal of night, so too could the greatest destructive force in the pantheon be soothed into the greatest protector. She was proof that even the most savage rage could be transmuted into a force for preservation, that within the heart of chaos, the seeds of order lie waiting. The people of Egypt understood this duality intimately. They saw in her not just a god to be worshipped from afar, but a force to be brought into their homes, their cities, their very lives. But how does one domesticate a goddess with the heart of a lion? How did an entire city rise from the sands in her name, becoming the vibrant, joyful, and perhaps even notorious center of her powerful cult? As her influence swelled from the Nile Delta across the entire land, Bastet's worship needed an earthly anchor, a capital of her own. In the fertile eastern delta, a city rose to meet this divine need. Bastet, the house of Bastet, known to the Greeks as Bubastis. What began as a provincial town would, over centuries, transform into one of the most magnificent religious capitals in the ancient world. its fortunes waxing and waning with the pharaohs, who honored its divine mistress by the time the Greek historian Herodotus visited in the 5th century BC. Bubastis was a city of legendary fame, renowned for one event above all others, the great festival of Bastet. Barges crowded the Nile, packed with pilgrims from every corner of Egypt. Herodotus describes a journey of pure revelry, men playing pipes, women clashing cymbals, and the riverbanks echoing with song and joyous clamor. Upon arrival, the city swelled with an immense, ecstatic crowd. He claimed as many as 700,000 people, not counting children, converged to honor the goddess. It was a time of feasting, music, and unrestrained celebration, where more wine was consumed than in the rest of the year combined. A city given over entirely to the joyous, protective, and wild spirit of its patron deity. At the heart of this jubilation stood Bastet's temple. Though now in ruins, descriptions and archaeological findings allow us to reconstruct its former glory. It was not the tallest of Egypt's temples, but Herodotus declared it the most beautiful he had ever seen. Built of fine red granite, it stood on an island, surrounded by a sacred lake and shaded by a grove of consecrated trees. Pilgrims would pass through a grand entryway flanked by towering statues, crossing courtyards adorned with intricate reliefs depicting the goddess in her feline and human forms. Deep within, beyond the public spaces, lay the inner sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, where the cult statue of Bastet resided, and where only the highest priests and priestesses could enter. Here, a dedicated priesthood served the goddess's every need. Their days were governed by ancient rituals, lighting incense, presenting offerings of food and milk, and chanting hymns that had been spoken for 1,000 years. But their most unique duty was the care of the temple's living incarnations of Bastet, the sacred cats. These were not mere pets. They were vessels of the divine, pampered and protected, fed the finest fish and watched over with reverent care. To harm one, even accidentally, was a crime punishable by death. Bubastis was more than a city. It had become the epicenter of a nationwide phenomenon. It was the undisputed capital of the cat, drawing pilgrims not just to celebrate, but to make a unique and solemn offering. This devotion manifested in a practice of staggering scale. From across the kingdom, Egyptians brought mummified cats as votive offerings to the goddess, creating vast sacred cemeteries filled with their small, linen-wrapped bodies. Each one was a prayer, a token of respect, a hope for protection in this life and the next. But as millions of these small mummified bodies were laid to rest, they weren't just memorials. They were messages, sent across the veil between worlds. But Bastet's power was not confined to the heavens or the grand temples. It walked among the people, silent and graceful, on 4 padded feet. For in the minds of the Egyptians, the goddess had a living, breathing incarnation on earth. The humble house cat. But how did this unassuming creature ascend from simple pest controller to a divine vessel? The story begins not with a prayer, but with a practical, life or death necessity. Egypt was the breadbasket of the ancient world, its wealth stored in colossal granaries, brimming with grain. This bounty attracted a relentless enemy, rats and mice, carriers of famine and disease. Into this silent war stepped a perfect predator. The cat, with its stealth, patience, and lethal efficiency, became the guardian of Egypt's survival. It kept the grain safe, the homes clean, and the people fed. What began as a practical alliance soon blossomed into reverence. Egyptians, keen observers of the natural world, saw more than a hunter. They saw a reflection of their goddess. They saw her grace in its fluid movements, her independence in its self-possessed nature, and her mystery in its luminous, watchful eyes. The cat was no longer just a useful animal. It was a fragment of the divine, a gift from Bastet herself, embodying her protective, domestic spirit. This reverence was enshrined in the very laws of the land. To harm a cat was to commit a grave sacrilege against the goddess. The Greek historian Herodotus recorded that anyone who intentionally killed a cat faced the penalty of death, tactile without exception. Even the accidental death of a feline could bring ruin upon a household, families shaving their eyebrows as a profound sign of mourning and grief. The life of a single cat was deemed more valuable than any possession, a sacred trust placed in human hands. Look closely at the art left behind on tomb walls and papyri. There they are, woven into the fabric of daily life. A cat sits poised under the chair of a noblewoman, a symbol of domestic tranquility and the protection of the home. It appears on amulets worn for safety, and in reliefs, it joins the family in hunting and fishing expeditions in the marshes. They were not merely animals, they were family. This profound bond extended beyond life itself. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of cats mummified with the same care as humans, their bodies wrapped in fine linen and placed in ornate coffins. They were buried with their beloved owners to accompany them into the afterlife, or given their own elaborate tombs, complete with bowls of milk and mummified mice for the long journey ahead. This was not just reverence for a symbol, it was love for a companion. The Egyptians cherished their cats in life, and they would not be parted from them in death. This devotion created a demand that echoed across the kingdom, a need to honor the goddess by honoring her chosen animal, in life and beyond. As the sun set on the horizon, the divine battle for creation was won for another day. But Bastet's work was far from over. Her protection, once wielded on a cosmic scale, was now sought in the most sacred space of all, the Egyptian home. With the setting of the sun, her watch truly began, across the threshold of every dwelling. From the humble mud brick house of the farmer to the sprawling villa of the nobleman, Bastet was the silent sentry. She was the guardian of the hearth, an invisible shield against the terrors that lurked in the darkness. Ancient Egyptians believed the night was filled with malevolent spirits, disease-bearing demons, and unseen misfortunes. Against these, Bastet stood firm. Her presence was a divine ward, ensuring that the peace within a family's walls remained unbroken. She was the guarantor of harmony, the benevolent force that turned a simple house into a sanctuary. Imagine the vulnerability of an ancient family, their world lit only by the flicker of an oil lamp. In this fragile light, Bastet's primary role came into focus. She was the sacred protector of women and children. For a wife, she was a divine confidant. For a mother, she was a shield against the immense dangers of childbirth. In a time of high infant mortality, her image was a beacon of hope, a promise of vitality for the newborn. She was invoked to nurture the young, to guard their sleep, and to guide their first steps, ensuring the family's lineage would continue. This was not a distant, state-mandated faith. It was a deeply personal relationship, woven into the fabric of daily life. Archaeologists unearthed the proof from the ruins of ancient homes, small, personal altars in corners of rooms, and countless amulets bearing her feline form, crafted from brilliant blue-green faience. These tiny statues and charms were worn by men, women, and children alike, a constant, tangible connection to their protector. Amulets of a mother cat suckling her kittens were especially popular, a powerful symbol of fertility and maternal care. These were not mere decorations. They were conduits for her divine energy, personal pieces of a goddess kept close to the heart. But to ward off the darkness, gentle presence was not always enough. The ferocity of the lioness was never truly gone. It was simply refined, focused. The same power that could shred the serpent of chaos could be called upon to strike down the venomous scorpion hiding in a clay pot, or the viper slithering through the reeds. She was the holy predator whose instincts protected her human family from the very real dangers of the natural world and the supernatural threats that haunted their nightmares. Ultimately, a home under Bastet's watch was a home of well-being. Her protection was inextricably linked to prosperity. A healthy family, safe from plague and evil, could thrive. The laughter of children, the security of a well-stocked larder, the peace of a night uninterrupted by fear-all, were seen as reflections of Bastet's divine favor. She was more than a guardian. She was the very embodiment of a joyful and secure domestic life. But if this was the quiet, intimate devotion she inspired within the four walls of a private home, what happened when hundreds of thousands of her followers gathered in one place to honor her all at once? The answer lay on the banks of the Nile, in a city that bore her name, and a festival that would become the most debaucherous, ecstatic, and legendary celebration in all of Egypt. But as the fire of the lioness receded, it revealed a different, more intimate power. The fearsome guardian of Ra softened, her form shifting into that of the domestic cat, and with it, her dominion expanded into the very heart of the Egyptian home. Here, she was no longer just a shield against chaos, but a source of life's greatest blessings for the women of Egypt. Bastet was the divine embodiment of their most profound hopes. They saw in the mother cat, nursing her large and healthy litters, a perfect mirror of their own desires. Her name was whispered in prayers by those longing to conceive, a plea for the sacred gift of new life. In her, the miracle of creation was made gentle, approachable, and deeply personal. Small statues of Bastet, often depicted with a retinue of kittens at her feet, were common household offerings. Placed in homes as a beacon for fertility, this divine patronage extended through the perilous journey of childbirth. Amulets bearing her graceful form were clutched in the hands of women in labor, a tangible link to her protective power. She was the divine midwife, invoked to ensure a safe delivery and to watch over the newborn. Just as a mother cat guards her young with unwavering vigilance, to see Bastet with her kittens was to see a divine promise that life would continue, that the family line would endure, and that the home would be filled with the sound of healthy children. Yet, her influence was not confined to the quiet moments of family life. Bastet was the incarnation of joy itself. She was the patroness of music, dance, and uninhibited revelry. In countless depictions, she holds the sistrum, a sacred rattle whose shimmering sound was believed to soothe the gods and drive away evil spirits. To shake the sistrum in her honor was to participate in the rhythm of the cosmos, to celebrate the sheer, exuberant delight of being alive. She was the laughter at a feast, the beat of the drum, the pulse of a nation that understood the necessity of celebration. Her blessings were a feast for the senses. She was the goddess of perfumes and precious unguents, haze, her essence captured in the fragrant lotus blossom and the sweet scent of myrrh. In a world of harsh sun and arid sand, what could be a greater luxury than a beautiful scent? It was more than simple vanity. Perfume was a mark of civilization, a tool of seduction, and a form of purification that brought one closer to the divine. To anoint oneself with scented oil was to invoke Bastet's grace, to embrace beauty, and to attract good fortune, from the intimacy of the bedroom to the grand halls of celebration. Her benevolent influence rippled outward, touching the very soil of the kingdom. The fertility she promised to women was mirrored in the fertile black earth of the Nile. The abundance of her litters symbolized the abundance of the harvest. Bastet's joy was Egypt's prosperity. Her blessings were the lifeblood of a civilization, a divine assurance that the gods smiled upon them, that the granaries would be full, and that life would flourish. This deep, personal connection to joy, family, and prosperity elevated her from a mere deity to a beloved member of the national soul. But how did an entire civilization channel this adoration? What happened when millions of voices were raised in her name, not in quiet prayer, but in a thunderous chorus of celebration? What was it truly like to attend the festival of Bastet, an event the Greek historian Herodotus called the most elaborate and debaucherous in all of Egypt? But the gentle guardian of the hearth held a terrifying secret. For when the sun died each evening and the world of mortals slept, Bastet's true work began. Every night, the sun god Ra sailed his golden bark through the Duat, the treacherous Egyptian underworld, a journey he must complete for the dawn to break. And every night, a great enemy awaited him. Apophis, the serpent of chaos, an immense embodiment of darkness whose only desire was to swallow the sun and unmake creation itself. On the prow of that sacred boat, silhouetted against the supernatural glow, stood Ra's fiercest defender. Here, Bastet was not the purring house cat, but the Eye of Ra, a divine avenger. With the ferocity of a lioness and the speed of a striking viper, she was the first and last line of defense against oblivion. The ancient texts speak of her flashing knife and razor claws, tearing into the serpent's flesh, her battle cry echoing in the starless void. For the Egyptians, the sunrise was not a certainty of physics, but a daily testament to Bastet's victory in the depths of the night. This cosmic war was not her only battlefield. The Duat was teeming with the agents of Isfit, or chaos, and Bastet fought them all. Her role as a divine protector extended into the mortal realm in a profoundly intimate way, while her terrifying alter ego Sekhmet was the Lady of Pestilence. To bring of plagues, Bastet was invoked as their warden. It was the essential duality of the feline, the deadly hunter and the fierce protector. Egyptians prayed to Bastet to ward off venomous creatures and to turn back the tide of sickness, seeing her as the benevolent force that could soothe the wrath of her sister-self. This protection was most critical for one person above all others, the pharaoh. As the living embodiment of divine order on earth, the king was a constant target for the forces of chaos, both seen and unseen. Bastet was his supernatural guardian, a shield against plots, curses, and the dark magic of his enemies. To protect the king was to protect the stability of the entire nation. Her battle, therefore, was not merely against monsters and magic, but for the very soul of Egypt. It was a perpetual war for Mat, the sacred concept of truth, justice, and cosmic harmony against the gnawing, endless hunger of chaos. She was the warrior at the edge of the abyss, ensuring the light would never fail. This cosmic defender, cloaked in shadow and fury, ensured the sun would always rise. But when the sun did rise, it revealed an entirely different side of the goddess. A side celebrated not with weapons and warfare, but with music, wine, and unbridled ecstasy. From the sun-scorched fields of the south to the marshy delta of the north, a current of humanity began to flow. It was an annual pilgrimage, a sacred calling that drew hundreds of thousands from every corner of the kingdom. Their destination, the city of Bubastis, or Bubastis, the heart of their goddess's earthly domain. The journey itself was an act of worship, an arduous trek that tested faith and forged a communal bond long before the city's gates were in sight. Countless barges, packed shoulder to shoulder with pilgrims, drifted downstream. The air, thick with the scent of lotus and river water, was electrified by a symphony of devotion. The sharp clang of the sistrum, Bastet's sacred rattle, beat a constant, hypnotic rhythm. Flutes piped joyous melodies while men and women clapped and sang, their voices echoing across the water. As they passed towns along the bank, the pilgrims would shout and jeer in ritual taunts, a playful challenge that invited all to join the growing tide of merriment. This was not a solemn procession. It was a river of unbridled joy, flowing toward its divine source. Upon arriving at Bubastis, the pilgrims found a city transformed. Earthly inhibitions dissolved in an atmosphere of sacred release. Music poured from every temple and doorway. The streets became a stage for dancers, their movements telling ancient stories of creation and protection. Wine, the sacred gift of the gods, flowed with an astonishing abundance. Yet, beneath the rapturous celebration, lay a profound spiritual purpose. This was a ritual of cosmic renewal. Pilgrims brought offerings to the great temples, small statues of cats, precious oils, and prayers inscribed on papyrus. They sought Bastet's blessings for the fertility of their lands, the health of their families, and protection from the unseen evils that lurked in the darkness. Through communal feasting and shared libations, they reaffirmed their covenant with their guardian, the fierce protector who was also the bringer of joy. The festival reached its zenith with the sacred procession. The temple doors would swing open, and a hush would fall over the ecstatic crowd. Carried on the shoulders of her high priests, a sacred image of Bastet, veiled in fine linen and adorned with gold, would emerge into the sunlight. As she was paraded through the city, it was believed the goddess herself was moving among her people, her divine presence cleansing the land, warding off pestilence, and ensuring the prosperity of Egypt for another year. For a fleeting, glorious moment, the barrier between the heavens and the earth seemed to vanish entirely. This was the peak of Bastet's worship, an event of such magnitude it was famous throughout the ancient world. To truly know a god, one must see them, not with the eyes of mortals, but through the sacred art that gives form to the divine. For millennia, the Egyptians sculpted and painted the goddess Bastet, not in one single image, but in a trinity of powerful forms, each revealing a different facet of her soul. The image that endures, the one that has captivated the world, is of the cat-headed woman. Here, she stands in perfect, poised eleganza, divine being who walks the line between two worlds. The body is human, graceful and strong, while the head is that of a domestic cat, its gaze serene yet ever watchful. This was not a monster, but a sublime fusion. In her hands, she often carries a sistrum, a sacred rattle whose music was said to soothe the gods and banish evil. She also bears an aegis, a protective collar or breastplate, frequently adorned with the head of a lioness, a potent reminder of the ferocity that lay just beneath her calm surface. But to see her only this way is to forget her origins in the scorching desert sun. Before she was the cat, she was the lion. In the earliest days of her worship, Bastet was a figure of terrifying power, depicted as a fierce lioness, often indistinguishable from the goddess of vengeance, Sekhmet. This primal image never entirely vanished. It lingered in her iconography as a shadow of her awesome, world-altering potential. As Egyptian civilization flourished and the wild cat became a cherished companion, so too did the goddess transform. Her most direct and intimate manifestation became the creature itself, a sleek, black cat. Statues from her temples show the animal seated in a state of divine composure. It's often adorned with golden earrings and precious collars. This was no mere symbol. To the faithful, this was the goddess made flesh, a living vessel for her spirit, her Ba, walking among her people. To look into the eyes of such a creature was to feel the direct presence of Bastet herself. The objects she carries are a language of their own. The sistrum speaks of joy, music, and the sacred festivals held in her honor. The Ankh, the key of life, signifies her power over fertility and birth. She is sometimes shown holding a simple basket. What secrets did it contain? Perhaps it symbolized the harvest and the bounty of the home she protected. Or perhaps, more tenderly, it was meant to hold her sacred kittens. A direct nod to her role as a guardian of mothers and children. And though rarer, she could be seen with arrows, a final, sharp reminder that this goddess of music and dance was, first and always, the unyielding defender of Egypt. From savage lioness to graceful hybrid to beloved household cat, her image evolved across 3,000 years. This was not a contradiction, but a story written in stone and gold, a reflection of a people's changing relationship with their gods and with the natural world. Her face changed, but her essence as a fierce protector remained immutable. The statues and reliefs show us how the Egyptians saw their goddess. But how did they celebrate her? The answer lies in a city that rose and fell in her name, a place of music, reverence, and uninhibited joy, where hundreds of thousands gathered for a festival unlike any other in the ancient world. The grand festivals at Bubastis were a fleeting, vibrant testament to devotion. But for the true believer, a more permanent, more profound offering was required, an eternal message sent from the world of the living to the realm of the divine. This message was not written in ink or carved in stone. It was wrapped in linen. Imagine an act of faith so powerful it sought to bridge the chasm between worlds. For the ancient Egyptians, the mummification of a cat was not merely the preservation of a pet. It was a sacred transaction. A carefully embalmed feline could be a votive offering, a physical prayer left at Bastet's temple in hopes of securing her favor. It could be a beloved companion, destined to join its human family in the eternal fields of the afterlife. Or, in the most hallowed cases, it could be a temple cat, believed to have been a living vessel for the spirit of Bastet herself, now returning to its divine source. This devotion created something unimaginable. Entire cities of the dead, reserved for felines, in the late 19th century. Archaeologists excavating at sites like Bubastis and Saqqara began to unearth not tombs of pharaohs, but vast catacombs packed to the ceiling with small, bandaged forms. They had discovered sacred cat cemeteries on an industrial scale, containing hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, of mummies. At one site near Beni Hazen, an estimated 19 tons of cat mummies were discovered, a silent, staggering multitude that baffled their modern discoverers. Each member of this silent army had been prepared with solemn care. The process mirrored human mummification, a testament to the cat's sacred status. The internal organs were removed, the body cavities sterilized, and the corpse packed with natron salt to draw out all moisture. After weeks of drying in the desert heat, the shrunken form was anointed with precious oils and resins, then meticulously wrapped in strips of fine linen. Some were simple, tightly bound bundles. Others were works of art, their wrappings arranged in intricate geometric patterns, their faces detailed with ink to give them a lifelike expression for their journey into eternity. Their final resting places were just as varied. A poor pilgrim might place their offering in a simple clay pot. A wealthier patron could commission a custom wooden coffin, sometimes carved into the shape of the cat it contained. The most revered cats, likely those from the temple itself, were interred in magnificent bronze sarcophagi, sculpted forms sitting in regal poise, eyes of rock crystals staring into the infinite. They were often buried with tiny offerings, a small bowl for milk, a bronze amulet of the goddess' provisions for a journey they would not take alone. This was the heart of the cult's popular power. Pilgrims flocked to Bastet's temples, not just to worship, but to participate. They would purchase a mummified cat from the temple priests, a sacred commodity in a thriving spiritual economy. Was this a cynical trade, or the most accessible way for an ordinary person to send a direct message to their divine protector? Whatever the motive, the transaction was simple. This mummified creature, offered with a pious heart, would carry their prayers for health, for family, for protection, directly to the goddess. For centuries, these millions of sacred bodies rested in darkness, an army of faith waiting to deliver their messages to the divine. But when they were finally unearthed, their fate would be one of unimaginable desecration, revealing a dark chapter in the story of both Egypt and the goddess they served. Within the perfumed silence of her temples, a dedicated order moved with practiced grace. They were the guardians of the goddess, a priesthood bound by sacred duty to serve Bastet in her earthly home. This was no mere collection of officiants, but a complex, divine household structured to mirror the celestial court. At its apex stood the high priest, the chief servant of the goddess, who alone could enter the inner sanctum. Below him were ranks of priests and priestesses, the Wab or pure ones, who maintained the ritual purity of the sacred space, and the lector priests, who recited the holy texts from ancient papyrus scrolls. Each day, before the first light of dawn touched the Nile, the great ritual began. Imagine the scene, a procession moving through silent halls, their bare feet whispering on cool stone. They approached the naos, the shrine housing the cult statue, breaking the clay seal that had protected it through the night. This was the awakening of the goddess. They would wash the statue, anoint it with precious oils, clothe it in the finest linen, adorning it with jewelry of gold and lapis lazuli. Offerings were laid before her: bread, beer, wine, tea, and meat, not for physical consumption, but so the goddess could absorb their spiritual essence. Hymns were sung and prayers were chanted, filling the air with a devotion that had echoed through the ages. But Bastet's priesthood had a duty. Unlike any other in Egypt, their care extended beyond a statue of stone and gold. Within the temple precincts lived hundreds, sometimes thousands, of sacred felines, believed to be the living incarnations, the Ba of the goddess herself. These were not simply pets. They were vessels of the divine. Priests and priestesses were tasked with their feeding, their health, and their protection. To harm one of these cats was a grievous sin. Through these living avatars, the goddess communicated her will. The priests of Bastet were diviners, interpreting the subtle movements of the sacred cats as divine omens. A sudden stretch, a playful swat, the direction of a gazelle could hold meaning for a pilgrim seeking guidance. Was the goddess pleased with an offering? Would a coming journey be safe? The answers were sought in the enigmatic behavior of her four-legged children in this sacred sphere. Women held a place of profound power and prestige, a reflection of the goddess they served. As patron of women, childbirth, and the home Bastet's cult naturally elevated her female devotees. Women served as priestesses, as divine singers, and as musicians who filled the temples with the hypnotic rattle of the sistrum. They were not merely assistants. They were potent spiritual authorities, guardians of mysteries unique to their goddess. These quiet, daily devotions formed the sacred rhythm of the temple, the constant heartbeat of the cult. But this solemn reverence was only one face of Bastet's worship. For once a year, this sacred order would be swallowed by a wave of humanity, as all of Egypt descended on Bubastis for a celebration of divine ecstasy unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen. For millennia, her festivals had shaken the banks of the Nile, her name a prayer on the lips of millions. In the sacred city of Bubastis, she was the vibrant heart of Egypt, a goddess of joy, fertility, and fierce protection. But the winds of change were gathering force, blowing in from across the Great Sea. A new empire, forged in iron and law, was rising. Rome was coming. The Roman conquest brought a new order. While initially tolerant of Egypt's ancient pantheon, the Romans viewed the veneration of animal-headed deities with suspicion and disdain. The old ways were seen as foreign, decadent. The sacred cats, once protected by law on pain of death, were no longer inviolable. Bastet's cult, so entwined with the sovereignty of the pharaohs, began to wane as Egypt became a mere province, a breadbasket for a distant emperor. Her temples, once centers of state power, slowly faded in influence. Then came a new faith, born in the deserts of Judea, carrying a message of a single, all-powerful God. Christianity spread through the Roman Empire like a holy fire, and in Egypt, it found fertile ground. The old gods were recast as demons, their worship an affront to the one true faith. The chanting in Bastet's temples fell silent, replaced by the hymns of a new religion. By the 4th century, official decrees outlawed paganism entirely. The statues of the goddess were toppled, her sanctuaries abandoned or converted into churches. The age of the gods was over. For more than 1,000 years, Bastet's name was buried, an echo in the shifting sands. But does a goddess, an idea so powerful, ever truly die? While her formal worship ended, whispers of her essence may have survived in the folk tales of protective female spirits, in the enduring reverence for the cat as a guardian of the home. Perhaps a shadow of Bastet lingered, a spirit of fierce maternity and joyful defense, woven into the fabric of a new culture that no longer knew her name. It would be the dawn of a new age, the age of archaeology that would call her back from oblivion. In the late 19th century, explorers and excavators descended upon the Nile Delta, their shovels and brushes uncovering the secrets of a forgotten world. At the site of Tel Basta, the ancient Bubastis, they found not just the ruins of her colossal temple, but a staggering, almost unbelievable sight: vast catacombs, filled with the mummified remains of hundreds of thousands of cats, each one a sacred offering to the goddess. The world was stunned. Bastet, the cat goddess, was resurrected from the dust. Her story once again told in museums and universities around the globe. From the silent tombs of Bubastis, she has re-emerged into our modern consciousness, not as a deity to be worshipped, but as a potent symbol. She is the embodiment of a captivating duality, the gentle, nurturing protector who harbors the ferocity of a lioness. She represents a civilization that saw divinity not just in the heavens, deified, but in the graceful, enigmatic creature curled by the hearth. And so, her fascination endures, a testament to our timeless connection with the animal world and the mysteries it holds. Has she become a simple icon, a beautiful relic of a lost time? Or, in our modern world, filled with its own invisible plagues and hidden threats, is the spirit of the protector goddess more relevant than ever? What ancient secrets about power, protection, and our own dual nature does the cat goddess still hold for us today? Though her temples fell silent, and her name faded into the sands of time, the spirit of Bastet was not extinguished. It merely slept, waiting to be reborn in the modern imagination. In the 20th and 21st centuries, she has re-emerged with a vengeance. Her feline mystique captivating a world far removed from the banks of the Nile. She stalks the pages of comic books and novels, a shadowy protector, an enigmatic guide. In the digital realm of video games, she is a formidable warrior. Her ancient power translated into a pantheon of pixels and code across film and television. Her name is invoked to suggest mystery, divine grace, and a power that is both elegant and deadly. She is the archetype of the feline guardian, a figure of silent strength who walks between worlds, as comfortable in the shadows of an alley as she was in the sun-drenched courts of a pharaoh. But her revival is not confined to fiction. For many, Bastet is a living presence once more. In the growing circles of neo-paganism and modern goddess worship, she has been joyously reclaimed. Here, she is not a relic of a dead religion, but a vibrant source of spiritual energy. Adherents see in her a patroness of joy, music, and dance, a reminder to celebrate life's pleasures. They call upon her for protection of the home and family, and embrace her as a powerful symbol of sensuality and untamed female empowerment. This spiritual renaissance is mirrored in the world of art. Artists across the globe, inspired by her dual nature, have created stunning new interpretations of the goddess. Canvases pulse with her leonine fury, while sculptures capture her serene, watchful stillness. They blend the rigid iconography of ancient Egypt with the fluid lines of modern expressionism, creating a Bastet for a new age, a goddess who is at once timeless and strikingly contemporary, perhaps her most profound modern legacy, however, is the one that curls up at our feet. The sacred status she bestowed upon the cat has never truly vanished. Today, over 500 million domestic cats live alongside humanity, each one a living heir to Bastet's sacred lineage. In their quiet independence, their sudden bursts of playful energy, and their comforting rhythmic purr, we see a reflection of the goddess herself. She has elevated them beyond mere animals, transforming them into cherished members of our families, silent confidants who carry an echo of the divine in their golden eyes. Ultimately, Bastet has become a potent symbol of a uniquely feminine power. She is not a goddess of overt warfare, but of subtle strength, fierce protection, and unapologetic self-possession. She embodies the grace that conceals a predator's speed, the gentleness that belies unbreakable will. For many women today, she represents the inner goddess, a call to embrace their own independence, to trust their intuition, and to walk through the world with the confidence of a creature who knows her own worth. She has returned to our world in spirit, in art, and in the quiet companions by our fireside. But after millennia of silence, what is her ultimate message for humanity? And what final secrets does the cat goddess still hold in her enigmatic gaze? The joyous festivals eventually fell silent. The great temples, once centers of music and reverence, crumbled, their granite halls swallowed by the patient, shifting sands. For millennia, the memory of Bastet lay dormant, a whisper in the histories of Herodotus, a myth etched on stone. But she was not gone. She was merely waiting to be found. The unearthing began in the late 19th century, at a place the locals called Tel Basta Hill of Bast. Here, Swiss archaeologist Edouard Nouvel cut into the earth, searching for the fabled city of Bubastis. What he uncovered was beyond imagining. He found the foundations of the magnificent red granite temple, its layout confirming the ancient descriptions. He unearthed colossal statues of kings who honored the goddess, Fluela, and inscriptions that brought the vibrant life of her cult back into focus. For the first time, the myth had a physical address, but the most staggering discovery lay not in Bubastis, but in the sprawling necropolis of Saqqara. Here, beneath the desert floor, archaeologists discovered not a tomb, but a subterranean metropolis of the dead, dedicated entirely to felines. Imagine corridors stretching into the darkness, their walls lined with millions of meticulously wrapped and mummified cats, each one a prayer, a votive offering from a hopeful pilgrim. This was not the worship of kings, but the faith of the masses, revealed on an industrial scale. Some estimates suggest the Saqqara catacombs alone held the remains of over 4 million cats, each one representing a personal connection between a worshipper and their goddess. From these sites, a treasure trove of artifacts emerged, each a piece of a divine puzzle. Life-sized bronze statues of stunning artistry, capturing Bastet's serene, commanding presence. Intricate amulets worn for protection, small enough to be held in a child's hand. Votive stelae, inscribed with pleas and thanks from ordinary Egyptians who saw her not just as a state deity, but as a personal guardian. These objects were tangible proof of a faith that permeated every corner of Egyptian life, from the pharaoh's palace to the humblest home. Through them, we can reconstruct the lost world of her worshippers. We see the rituals, understand the economy of the temples that bred and cared for these sacred animals, and feel the sheer weight of her influence on society. But even now, the sands continue to offer new secrets. Modern technology peels back the ancient linen wrappings without disturbing them. CT scans of mummified cats reveal their life stories and their deaths. Were they cherished pets, offered in sorrow after a long life, or were they bred for the sole purpose of sacrifice, their necks broken at a young age to fulfill a pilgrim's vow? The evidence suggests a complex truth, a mixture of profound devotion and grim commerce. The physical remains of her cult have been brought into the light, giving a voice to the silent mummies and stone fragments. We have unearthed the goddess, but in doing so, we have also unearthed the story of her fall. How did a deity so woven into the fabric of Egypt, so beloved by millions, vanish into obscurity? And what does her modern resurgence tell us about our own quest for protection and meaning? The great temples fell to dust. The rituals were forgotten. The name of Bastet was whispered only by the wind blowing across the desert sands. But her power, her true essence, was never truly lost. It simply stepped from the shadow of the fallen columns, and on silent pause, walked into the future. This is the unbroken thread, stretching over 3,000 years, that connects the sacred cats of the Nile to the companions warming our laps today. From the palaces of pharaohs to the apartments of city dwellers, the feline form remains a constant. An elegant enigma we willingly invite into the very heart of our homes. The reverence has changed shape, but it has never faded. So what is the secret to this timeless reign? It is a magic woven from paradox. Cats are fiercely independent, yet they offer a profound and unconditional comfort. They are a whisper of the wild, yet they are the ultimate symbol of domestic peace. In their gentle, rhythmic purr, we find a sound that calms the storms within us. Modern science has even shown that the specific frequencies of a cat's purr can reduce stress and have tangible healing properties. It is the same soothing power that Bastet once offered her followers, a balm for the weary soul. A promise of tranquility today. They are our guardians in miniature. They do not slay cosmic serpents, but they stand a vigilant watch against the subtle shadows of modern life, loneliness, anxiety, the deafening silence of an empty house. They are the keepers of our hearths, their quiet presence a powerful ward against despair. In their playful antics, we see the joy and celebration Bastet once commanded. In their watchful gaze, we feel her ancient, protective spirit. Look closely into a cat's eyes, and you will see something that time has not touched: a deep, knowing stillness, a flicker of ancient secrets. This is the core of the bond, the spiritual connection that the Egyptians recognized so clearly. They did not invent the divinity of the cat. They were merely the first to build temples in its honor. They saw what we still see: a creature that walks between worlds, a being of both supreme comfort and untamable mystery. The legacy of Bastet, then, is not carved in hieroglyphs or encased in museum glass. It is a living legacy, a warm and purring presence in our lives. It is the silent understanding that passes between human and feline, an acknowledgement of the profound and beautiful role this animal continues to play in our world. The goddess's cult may be gone, but her spirit endures in every cat that claims a human heart. But as we carry this ancient reverence into a new millennium, a deeper question arises. Is this bond merely a memory of the past? Or is the goddess herself finding a new way to be reborn in the modern world? Our journey through the sands of time has led us here, to the heart of a divine mystery. We have witnessed a profound metamorphosis, a saga written in stone and papyrus. From the searing heat of Ra's fury, she first emerged as the lioness, the avenger, the eye of vengeance whose roar could shake the foundations of the world. Yet, over centuries, that roar softened. It became a purr. The fearsome warrior evolved into the gentle guardian, the protector of the hearth, the mother of joy. Was this a taming of the divine, or a revelation of its true, multifaceted nature? This was the essential evolution of Bastet, from a force of raw, untamable power to the cherished protector of all that was most vulnerable and precious in Egyptian life. Nowhere did this devotion burn brighter than in the Delta, in the city that became her sacred heart, Bubastis. We have walked its phantom streets, where the air once hummed with music and celebration. Here, hundreds of thousands of pilgrims arrived by barge, singing, dancing, and making offerings, transforming the entire city into the epicenter of Egyptian joy. Bubastis was more than a temple complex. It was a promise of protection, of fertility, of divine favor, an unbreakable bond between a goddess and the people who revered her. In her, the Egyptians saw a mirror to their own world, an embodiment of life's essential paradox. She was the wild hunter of the marshes and the comforting presence by the fire, the fierce slayer of the serpent Apep and the gentle mother who nurtured her young. She was the mistress of intoxicating perfumes and ecstatic dance, yet also the sober guardian against disease and evil spirits. To understand Bastet is to accept that ferocity and tenderness are not opposites, but two sides of the same divine coin. She taught that true strength lies not in aggression alone, but in the power to protect, to nurture, and to bring light into the darkness. Her appeal was universal because her domains were the very cornerstones of human existence. In a world fraught with peril, she offered unwavering protection. To families who longed for children, she offered the blessing of fertility. In times of hardship, she brought the promise of music, dance, and simple, unbridled joy. She wasn't a distant, unknowable deity of the cosmos. She was present in the laughter of children, the safety of the home, the warmth of the sun. Her essence was woven into the very fabric of daily life, and so, her legacy lives on. Quietly, persistently, in the creature that was her most sacred incarnation. The cat, an animal that walks the line between two worlds, the domestic and the wild, the seen and the unseen. In its silent tread, we feel Bastet's watchful presence. In its independent spirit, we see her untamable nature, and in the simple comfort of its companionship, we find a living echo of the protection she once offered an entire civilization. The epic saga of Bastet is not merely a story entombed in the past. It is a timeless reminder that within the familiar, the divine can be found, that protection and joy are life's greatest treasures, and that the quietest guardians often hold the most profound power. Her ancient myth is not lost to time. Its echo now lives within you. May you find her fierce protection and gentle joy in the creatures that share our world. Seek the divine balance she represents, and in doing so, honor the eternal connection between humanity and the gods.